evening all. I welcome you for this webinar on Scientific Sangam 5 by ISOPA Prayagraj Society in association with Varanasi Obs and Gynae Society. But we welcome you all on behalf of MCure and ISOPA Society Prayagraj. I welcome Dr. Ranjana Khanna ma'am, the founder president of ISOPA Prayagraj and National Vice President FOXI 2017 to take the proceedings ahead. I welcome you ma'am. Over to you.
A very good evening and a very warm welcome to all the esteemed faculties and delegates in this Scientific Sangam 5 organized by ISOPA Prayagraj chapter in association with Varanasi Obs and Gynae Society. A big thank you first of all to ICOG for granting us 1 credit point. We are now going to unfold a plethora of wonderful scientific talks by prolific speakers. At the outset, I want to welcome our chief guest, Dr. Padma Shri Professor Alka Kriplani ji. And everyone knows she's a dynamic person. She's an academician par excellence. And above that, she is a wonderful laparoscopic surgeon, a robotic surgeon. And in fact, she is a surgeon par excellence of national and international repute. She is above all, I would like to say for Dr. Kriplani is that she is a very warm person and she is completely grounded, completely down to earth and always ready to help and a wonderful person indeed. And I have had a good chance to be in contact with her, so I can say that. And above, I would like to welcome our guest of honor, Dr. Muralidhar V. Pai, who is a great academician, and he is actually he is the unit head of KMC Manipal, and well, he's a good singer too. And I would also like to welcome our esteemed chairpersons. We have Professor Anuradha Khanna, who is ex-HOD of BHU, and Professor Vinita Das, who is ex-HOD of KGMU, Lucknow, and Dr. Kiran Pandey, who is HOD currently of GSVM Medical College, Kanpur. So I would want to say one thing, that we will take up the question answers of the first session, which the talk will be by Dr. Alka Kriplani immediately after the session, and of the second and the third sessions, we'll take it together in the end, the question and answer. And oh, thank you, Anuradha ji, for joining. And now I would request you to please put on the CV of Dr. Alka Kriplani, because I did not want anyone else to introduce her. So,
sure.
CV of Dr. Alka Kriplani, please. Padma Shri Dr. Alka Kriplani is has been President FOXI in 2016, and a wonderful academic year that was. She has been President of the Gynecological Endocrine Society of India. She's still continuing. She's President Delhi Gynecological Endoscopic Society 2014 to 2016, and President AOGD. She's been the editor of Asian Journal of Obs and Gynae, co-chair FIGO Menstrual Disorder Committee, and she's got so many awards. We all know that she's Padma Shri. So that's one big award. Another big award up her kitty is Dr. B.C. Roy National Award. And she's got honorary FRCOG, London. Delhi Medical Association has given her the Medical Teachers Award, and IMA Med Achievers Award, CNBC Award, lots of awards, scientific publications, 405. Organized conferences. We all know that she was she's been ex-HOD of Obs and Gynae Department of AIIMS, New Delhi, and currently she's Director and Head Department of Gynecology, Obstetrics and ART, Paras Hospitals, Gurugram. And her field of interest is gynecological endoscopy, reproductive endocrinology, and high-risk pregnancy. We welcome you, Dr. Kriplani, and I would like to take your blessings before you proceed for the scientific talk. But before that, I would request Dr. Parul, who is the communicator, ISOPA Prayagraj, to please introduce our expert chairperson, Dr. Anuradha Khanna, to come on board, because she is going to chair this session by Dr. Alka Kriplani. Dr. Parul.
A very good evening to all of you. So without wasting much time, I would start with the first session, which is a talk on cesarean myomectomy by Padam Shri Dr. Alka Kriplani. And our chairperson for the session is Professor Dr. Anuradha Khanna. Ma'am is ex-HOD, Department of Obs and Gynae, BHU Varanasi. She has been past president of Banaras Obs and Gynae Society, founder president of Society of Fetal Medicine, UP Chapter 2021. She's also been organizing secretary for various conferences, including AICOG 2012. Ma'am is also examiner for UG and PG exams and MCI inspector. And she has been awarded various national and international awards like WHO Fellowship Award, Indo-Hungarian Fellowship Award. She has more than 120 publications in national and international journals. Overall, a great academician. I welcome you, ma'am. It's our pleasure to have you with us. Now I request Dr. Alka Kriplani, ma'am, to shower her blessings on the webinar and to please give her talk on the topic cesarean myomectomy. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for your kind introduction, Ranjana ji. I have a very long association with Ranjana when I used to organize so many conferences, non-COVID times, and she was always there.
Yes.
So it was an absolute pleasure. And in the evenings, her husband will also accompany her and they both will dance. So that was the added advantage. I could see Dr. Pai and Vinita Das madam, and Anuradha Khanna is such a dynamic lady. I have the privilege of operating under her leadership, I think more than 2-3 times. And it's always a pleasure to go to BHU. And what to say, actually I have a very heavy heart. We have lost so many friends here because of COVID. So nowadays spirits are very low. And by God is kind, I think, I don't know, in your city, in Delhi, it is becoming, menace is little less. So let us pray and hope to God that this problem goes away early. And without wasting time, let us come to the topic. And ISOPAR is an association where Patna people were very active for many, many years. And now it is going all over. It's a very good association with very nice people. There is no, no politics, no ho-halla, and they keep doing their activities with quiet mind. That's a very nice. And these are the topics which are, more important for general obstetrician and gynecologists. Endoscopy ART has its own place, but I think we can never neglect obstetrics because majority of our colleagues are associated with it. So let me start with the session, and it's an absolute pleasure to see colleagues. तरस गए हैं हम आजकल एक दूसरे को देखने के लिए.
True.
I'm totally grounded. I'm not leaving house since so many friends, Shekhar Agrawal, KK Agrawal, they all expired.
Yeah.
In spite of best of facilities, nothing could be done. So we are really scared. Yes. Can I have my slides? I have to again do screen share?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. So is it okay?
Yes, ma'am. Ekdam.
I bring you greetings from Paras Hospital, Gurgaon, where I'm not going nowadays for work. By God's grace, soon we will start again. And the topic is myomectomy at the time of cesarean. It is a little controversial thing because conventional teaching was not to do myomectomy when you are doing a cesarean. But let us see what is the literature, let us see what is the experience of our center for decades and how careful and what should be do's and don'ts of the procedure. So colleagues, pregnancy with fibroid uterus. Ranjana ji, how much time? 15 minutes, 20 minutes?
20 minutes आप लीजिए.
20. It's perfectly fine because other people.
Hanji.
So it is a very common tumor. 20 to 30% of females, when you do ultrasound, you will find them harboring a fibroid. But not all fibroids are harmful. They're very small, 2, 3, 4 centimeter myoma sitting somewhere in the myometrium. It doesn't bother us. But if they are big, if they are nearing the cavity, that becomes an issue, and that becomes, patient becomes more symptomatic. But when there is fibroid in pregnancy, now what all complications of fibroid can lead to, so that we fear or we have to take extra precautions during pregnancy. There is a whole list of complications, especially in the antepartum period: red degeneration, preterm labor, PROM, growth restriction, intrapartum malpresentation, dysfunctional labor, postpartum more PPH, because there is, it interferes with contractility. And I must say here, vaginal delivery is not at all a contraindication. Majority of time it happens. But if you are doing cesarean for an obstetrical indication, then comes the role of cesarean myomectomy. So these are the studies showing that risk of cesarean, risk of malpresentation, all risks of these complications are higher when pregnancy is complicated by fibroid. Very important question is, what is the effect of pregnancy on fibroid? So in some percentage of cases, you may find increase in size. There is one complication peculiar, that is red degeneration. You all must have noticed, where we do go conservative, no role of surgery. So antepartum myomectomy is a big no for everybody. But when I was at All India Institute, I used to get all kind of reference from colleagues and patient with severe pain. So there are few indications: torsion in the fibroid, very huge fibroid leading to degeneration, very bad pain. And one such patient, this was the patient where she came to us, and then we reported patient had wanted pregnancy, but she had so much of pain. She said, terminate my pregnancy. Then she was referred to us. So you have to open in pregnancy with a liberal incision. You can't fiddle with the uterus, because gravid uterus may go in preterm labor. See, the uterus was around 20 weeks and the fibroid was, I think, 2-3 kgs. And there was, because what happens with the increased vascularity, there may be too much of blood supply to fibroid, and once it goes beyond blood supply, it leads to degeneration, ischemia, and the patient lands up in severe pain. So you have to have a liberal incision, you have to manipulate least, you have to apply all the nonsense of how to do a safe myomectomy, be away from myometrium. And this way, couple of cases used to come, and we used to manage. Even I have a lovely video of torsion of subserosal fibroid, and it's becoming gangrenous. But as a routine, you should never embark on antepartum myomectomy, because it will be very risky for the pregnancy. Then yes, this is a very burning issue, and it is very close to my heart. I keep doing a lot of these cases at the time of cesarean. So traditionally, this is not recommended. And what it was thought to be a taboo in old books, it is our old Munroker and all, it is written, never touch. But let us discuss why we recommend that myomectomy should be done at cesarean, because it avoids an extra surgery. When I was at All India Institute, my waiting list for lap myomectomy was 6 months to 1 year. So it was very difficult. Many patients used to conceive while they are waiting, and then they are booked with us. Then we used to do there, and that is how we started. I'll just discuss with some video clips how we started years back. So it avoids an additional second surgery, it cost saving, avoids future pregnancy complications, takes away her problems of fibroid, the symptoms. But what is the problem? Why the seniors and wisdomful people say not to do? Because there is always a risk of excessive bleeding and need for hysterectomy. We are in a medical legal era, we always take a consent, and need for blood transfusion, even studies have shown it is slightly higher. So, but colleagues, change is the way of life. Everything is changing. See, our life has changed with Corona so much. Change, people change. OTs change. When our seniors used to say, don't embark, The anesthesia was not so good. The surgeons, the surgical techniques were not so good. You see now, myomectomy is a procedure thanks to laparoscopy and thanks to late childbearing. Every surgeon is, getting more and more proficient and experienced in myomectomy. So times are changing, surgeries are changing, surgeons are changing. See our OTs, how much they have changed. So these are the reasons we are, going ahead with these procedures. But whenever you are taking the patient for cesarean myomectomy, you have to be aware of all the ways in which you can reduce blood loss. And these are my own experiences over the decades. So uterotonic agents, take best use of uterotonic agents. Stepwise devascularization, which we keep teaching to all youngsters, and I think Ranjana in her presidentship as ISOPAR will take care of it. Devascularization saves so much of blood and lives. Local vasoconstrictors, use of proper tourniquet, myomectomy clamp. There are so many things which can be used to reduce blood loss. So how I started, simplest of the simple patient. You should have enough experience of doing cesarean, everybody has, but doing myomectomy. So this is a very simple case. You remove the baby, you see there is a 7 centimeter myoma lying. If you leave it, it may lead to, second stage surgery, may or may not. But why leave it? See, it is so bloodless. It is such a, 50% of the fibroid is protruding out. These are the simplest cases. Only thing, your technique has to be correct, and that is be inside the capsule. That is, and you saw I injected pitresin. So these vasoconstrictors, nowadays there is lot of literature for PPH and at cesarean reducing blood loss, tranexamic acid 1 gram. These things really reduce blood loss. So this is what we started long back. The simple cases where there is a single big myoma, it is lying somewhere, easy reach, and you finish off that, remove myoma, and your patient is saved off. Might be another surgery which may or may not be required. But then I started having lot of youngsters used to call me, Madam, I have given incision and fibroid is in the seat. This is the ultrasound says it is in the anterior lower segment. You remove the baby and the fibroid is following. I have no option but to do myomectomy here, because I cannot close this uterus where fibroid is more keen and eager and has partly come out along with the baby. So in such a situation, you should not be putting the fibroid back and suturing her. There is significant submucosal component. So these are the situations where any surgeon has to do myomectomy when the fibroid is in the lower segment, coming in the way of your surgery, and it is, distorting after removing the baby. And we used to remove such fibroids. You don't have to give extra incision, and with the same incision of the cesarean section, you can suture. See, it is one incision, lower segment, because fibroid was anterior lower segment. Then we have to teach our youngsters what are the ways to take out baby safely. In the next video, I will be showing that. And I always tell, never go for myomectomy first, even if the fibroid is in the lower segment coming in your way. Because the more the time you take taking out the baby at the time of cesarean, IQ of the baby is very important. Fibroid has no IQ. So first take out the baby, hand over to the pediatrician, then only you go embark on myomectomy. This is a very important message I want to pass on. And this is how you suture. Always take angles nicely, give pitresin. There are many more secrets I'll be showing in videos how to do a safe cesarean myomectomy. Most important secret is let the uterus contract. So fibroid is bigger than the baby and she is relieved of that problem. Now there are patients where you see it is just when you give incision, fibroid is coming out. Is pushing the baby, fibroid is in a hurry. Don't go hunting for the fibroid. First remove the baby, go little above, rupture the membranes, take out the baby, because baby's IQ is going to be affected by your delivery time. It is not the. And then once you remove the baby, let the uterus contact properly. The mistake colleagues make, they immediately, we don't have patience, we obstetricians, we give immediate incision till the, see how calcified fibroid baby was poor baby was sharing the cavity with this horrendous fellow. So this is what, these fibroids, they hardly bleed. It is a badly calcified like a stone myoma. It will lead to PPH if we don't remove it. And it is the same single incision we close. So these are the cases where you don't have the option. You must remove the fibroid at the time of cesarean to reduce our chances of PPH, infection, subinvolution, and they hardly have any. And you have no choice, fibroids coming along the way. But in the next couple of videos, I will be showing. So doing these cases, this I'm talking of, these are very, very old work of ours. Nowadays, the people have started accepting. These are the patients. The patient has 1 or 2 children. She undergoes cesarean. She tells me, madam, if there is a problem, you remove my uterus. I don't mind getting cesarean hysterectomy done. In those younger patients, I used to take their consent. And you see, there are multiple myomas. So take out the uterus. Let the uterus contract. Push it against the light. You will always see ascending uterine. Just simply tie it. It is a myth. I do a lot of placenta accreta. You all keep sending me. In these days, COVID days, I'm not going except for placenta accreta patients because there are ways to reduce blood loss. When Ranjana invites me next, and it's a pleasure, I'll be showing you videos of these placenta accreta cases. With increasing experience, learning from our own mistakes, see, I tied the uterines, then give pitressin. So pitracin's adverse side effects will also be less because you have hampered the blood supply. And these are 10, 15, 20, whatever number of myomas. We don't believe in going transcavity. We believe tunneling, but tunneling from the same incision for the surrounding myomas. So these are our own ways doing laparoscopic myomectomy in very, very large numbers. So by our own mistakes, we have learned so many things. These are the myomas with tunneling, removing. So patient had history of AUB. She was anemic. She conceived. One more point I would like to say, if the patient is booked with you and has fibroids, you build her up hemoglobin very nicely. That will really help you. Anemic tissue, you do myomectomy, healing will be bad. Immediately, little blood loss, she will go towards, hypovolemia. So build up their hemoglobin. Nowadays, we have injectable iron, which is such a, carboxy maltose give 1,000, 1,500 according to her anemia, and take her hemoglobin to 12, 13. So these are the secrets of, successful preparation. Surgery is not just doing. You have to prepare, you have to understand, you have to really, and this is being intracapsular in the myoma. So remove all the myomas if they are fundal and all, given a different incisions, baseball suturing, you do whatever suturing, it doesn't make a difference as long as good hemostasis is there. Good hemostasis, not using too much of cautery, and being in the correct layer are the secret of success where myomectomies do not bleed. So see, multiple myomas are removed, patient got the baby, patient has all the myomas out, so she will not require, hopefully, the second stage surgery. She is a young patient. Why go for hysterectomy? So it is a win-win situation for her. Now, this is a patient who came with a huge fibroid submucosal. Then their, cavity is distorted. You can't find out where is what. Then first remove the baby. First remove the baby. Assess everything. Take out the uterus. Look for the ascending uterine. Ligate them, temporary ligation and temporary clamping of infundibulopelvic devascularization, and most important, wait for the uterus to contract. Our seniors, keep hot sponges, give some massage. In a contracted uterus, you give incision, fibroid extrudes. In a patient whose uterus is not contracted, you give incision, it just bleeds. So, and then cautery, use of cauteries, of course, helps. And this was protruding into the cavity partly. So baby had just IUGR, and I think this was around 3 kg myoma. So single myoma, go in the correct layer. You will see the cavity is also opening in this case. Give pitressin, very dilute. Whatever ventricular tachycardia and things I have seen because vascularity is so much. Be very careful with pitocin, intrarectal. You see, cavity has opened a bit. So after that, removing the myoma completely, nicely suture in layers the uterus back because this may be her first baby. She may require next time. So one has to be really very, very cautious in operating her so that her functional integrity of the uterus for future childbearing is nicely maintained. So this is what you may do baseball, you may do V-lock. It doesn't make a difference as long as surgeon knows the principles of surgery. But we believe that V-lock suture sometimes they really save time. So this is what, the patient goes home with quick recovery. So let us see when we talk what is the evidence. Now more and more evidence is getting accumulated from all over the world about safety of myomectomy. So initially they said if it is lower segment, subserous, easily accessible, go, and it depends on surgeon's experience. Surgeon's experience is not cesarean. Surgeon experience is good understanding of the procedure of myomectomy. So if you have done both in enough large numbers, then you should embark on cesarean. So cesarean myomectomy is, proven to be of benefit. And these are the nice, lovely review articles. We have also published in international journals our work on cesarean myomectomy, which, used to generate a lot of question answering at that time. And more society guidelines are coming up that if you feel safe, you can go ahead. But please remember medical legal issue also. And these were our experiences. And there are experiences of literature that in one group, patients with myomas who were undergoing cesarean, they made it two groups. One group they didn't do myomectomy, one group they did myomectomy at the time of cesarean. And what was the crux of the matter? That blood loss was more and procedural time was more. So these are the two things even in our studies we found. Now see what RCOG says. Future fertility, again, they are endorsing depending on person's experience. See what other societies say. Scandinavian, myomectomy is a safe and effective procedure. And so what if not removed? Even I have in other units collected data. There were cases of fibroid coming out as inversion. There were cases PPH. In my own experience, when I was about to leave AIIMS, there was a, I think, 4 or 5 kg myoma. I thought this is too vascular, let me leave it because patient was not booked and she was anemic. And then after 3 days, I had to take her up because she was not improving her respiratory and all, huge fibroid, and there was degeneration and so much of pain. So you have to remember, you may be caught in an ugly situation in a huge fibroid in post-op period with PPH, subinvolution, fever, sepsis, although it is not common and this is with huge fibroids, it occurs. So I would like to share this patient of mine who is a doctor and who was at All India Institute of Medical Sciences. She was a resident. She came to me that, Madam, I have 24 weeks myoma and I used to do lap myomectomy. So I did her laparoscopic myomectomy. Then after some time, she got married. She got married and then she conceived. She came for cesarean to me. Then I did her cesarean and there were again multiple myomas. I removed, I think, 17, 18 myomas. After that, she conceived again. After 2-3 years, again I did her cesarean. And this is video clip of her second cesarean. So this is after my lap myomectomy when she was unmarried doing multiple myomas. Second cesarean, I removed 16 fibroids. And this is her third surgery, colleagues. You can see the scars of myomectomies where I did her cesarean myomectomy. This was her third surgery. And see, there were number of myomas developing. The uterus is a breeding ground for myomas for some people. But but we could give her 2 babies. And so these were the small, small myomas removed, all because, and now she's coming to me. She has again developed myomas. She's 37, 38 now. I will be doing her TLH. She got all these years with me, over 10, 15 years, 2 babies, 1 boy, 1 a girl, 3 surgeries. Now she will be having her 4th surgery for TLH, but she has 2 alive, healthy children. So key to success is careful patient selection, detailed counseling, well-equipped setup and blood transfusion at your disposal, skilled surgeon in both, and always take a consent that you don't know when you may have to do hysterectomy. Should initially start with a patient who has few children, 1 or 2. And these are the ways at All India Institute. It was, we had Pleasantec Rita projects going on. They used to put balloon, they used to do embolization. To my mind, it is the surgeon's technique. These procedures are not that helpful. We can always ligate uterines. So to conclude, cesarean myomectomy is traditionally not recommended except for simple pedunculated myomas, but it has advantages that it avoids repeat surgeries and it relieves her of her symptoms and reduces postpartum complications like PPH and subinvolution and saves cost to the patient. But one has to really start gradually doing simple myomas first and then embarking on difficult cases. Thank you very much for patient hearing. I would again like to thank Dr. Ranjana, and I can see Dr. Pai, Dr. Anuradha, my dear chairperson, my dear friend, and Vinita ji I saw, and all the delegates. Wish you stay safe, and let us all wish that Corona goes away fast. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for such a wonderful talk. We have around 705 delegates who are watching the webinar right now with us.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now I request Dr. Anuradha Khanna, ma'am, to give her expert comments on the topic.
Madam is expert of experts. I love her.
I too love you very much, Dr. Alka. We are very good friends, I know, and you are such a loving person and dedicated so much to your job, to the society, to everything. Everyone loves you a lot.
But madam, I'm dar gayi hu main. About so many friends I have lost.
I know, especially loss of Dr. K.K. Agrawal.
KK was like a brother. मैंने उसका 15
Yeah,
साल journal चलाया.
yeah,
He was
yeah.
such a fine person, madam. Doing
I
so
know. We
selfless.
all were getting lot of
It
things
was
from
very
him.
painful death.
Yeah, very painful.
दुर्गत
And
हो
उन्होंने
जाती है.
कहा show must go on. उनका वो video really it is so touching. मैं रहूं न रहूं, show must go on.
Dr. Shekhar
All
Agrawal
her,
was such
yeah,
a
so much touch, so much touch.
Really, really, really.
And madam, regarding your talk, it is a wonderful. And as you said that with the time we learn a lot. Like you said, I also started doing, as your circumstances you have mentioned, that the fibroid is coming on the scar. So what to do? Take out the baby and remove it also. But of course, we have taken the consent prior to the surgery.
always consent. Every myomectomy always take that. You never
I have
know.
taken a consent like it may be removed, may not be removed. Don't go like this.
Yes,
So, madam,
this is a very important thing you have said. I tell them if it is safe, I will proceed.
Yeah. Because then they can say, Madam, aapne nikala kyun nahi tha? Nahi, it was not safe.
This is a very good point you have added. Yes.
So it is a very important thing to take a consent.
You should not, try to prove yourself. You should know what is best in that situation for the patient.
And things were there when it was more subserous. It was easy to remove. But I have never tried the more intramural type of fibroid and posterior wall type of fibroid.
You are such a seasoned surgeon.
So I found that those who are coming on a scar, and two, I avoided big fundal fibroids, not to be touched. So I got these things, and as you have shown beautifully that you have operated a large fibroid on the left side of the baby, I think I too had that condition, but I discussed with the mother of the daughter. She said, Madam, आप इसको second time में कर लेना. abhi aap mujhe bachcha de do. So I have gone like that,
Very
not
well.
insisted for the
Perfect.
surgery. And
Actually,
next
madam,
time,
half of my OT time has gone doing myomas, you all know. Every day I do.
yeah.
So it has really improved my understanding so much.
Yeah. We loved your surgery. You have, for the first time from UPCOG, you have got the Dr. Kutti oration long
Yes.
back 2009-10. And that time you have shown these myomectomies, laparoscopic surgeries at BHU, and it was UP
Laparoscopy
Common.
has made us, better in open because of that magnification, because of,
Yeah.
you get caught in a situation, then you sit and think how I could have improved myself, and that is how you gradually improve.
Yeah. So thank you very much for entire of your talk. Was such a beautiful watching your videos. And I think Dr. Ranjana, thank you very much to you,
You're
Dr.
welcome. You're
Amita,
welcome,
for
Anuradha
making
ji.
a part of this ISOPAP.
मैंने
Question
कहा,
answers.
आप
Parul,
बड़े-बड़े
take up the
लोगों को
question
बुलाया
answers.
करो. I told Ranjana कि जब आप webinar करते हो तो बड़े-बड़े लोगों को बुलाकर, she so humble, she just smiled. Then I saw Pai, then I saw Vinita ji, then I saw. So
It's so nice to see you in one
Thank you
platform.
for your valuable comments. Now we will take up question and answers. Ma'am, there's a question regarding the role of intralesional progesterone depot during cesarean section for large fibroids. What is the role of intralesional progesterone depot?
intralesional means
Lesional inside the fibroid.
During
no,
cesarean.
no role.
No
Progesterone,
role.
DMPA
Never
we
heard
give
of it.
for contraception. That too, it is mentioned in the literature. Give 5th day, our girls go to Maika and they don't come back to husband. They don't resume sexual activity so early. So I wait for sawa mahine wala and then only.
Uh,
And
There's another
progesterone will
question.
not do any good to fibroid bitter.
Then when to give injection pitocin during cesarean myomectomy?
Very good question. So once the baby is out, and if a big fibroid, I have learned one thing, even in lap myomectomies, once you cut off temporarily the supply, either by clip or by tourniquet or by ligating the ascending uterine and putting clamps on the infundibulopelvic, then you give pitocin, though the chances of pitocin toxicity getting absorbed and going to the heart are much less, and very dilute pitocin.
So what is the dilution, ma'am? What is the ratio of the
I
dilution?
used to use 200 in 20 units in 200, but I have changed that. I had some accidents. I can very well share with you how difficult time I had. The patient, could be revived. After that, I take 5 or 10 units in 200. Because the day you have that complication, then, safety and your medical legal and your patient, these always they remind you, give very dilute. Maximum 10 units. I don't exceed that now.
Another question is, what is your choice of closing the myoma? In how many layers do you prefer closing the?
This is a very good question. Very good question. You may close in 1 layer. You may close in 3-4 layers. You should not leave any dead space. The bad scar is because there is hematoma formation in myomectomy that leads to fever, that leads to post-op stormy period, that leads to rupture of the scar. So you have to, and you don't have to give very tight sutures. You may think this is so dry. Don't put too much cautery, otherwise the healing will not be good. So minimum use of cautery, not leaving chances for hematoma or dead space. And layers, sometimes I use 3-4 layers, sometimes in 1-2 layers, depends on anatomy and how you have given the incision. And superficially 2-3 years back, I started doing baseball. But over the years, since I was in one institution 31 years, my patients keep coming back to me. Adhesion formation is mostly because of patient tendency. There is nothing much to do with baseball and all. And V-lock sutures we use in lap myomectomy, started using in cesarean. It comes out to be expensive. But if you are in a hurry and if with one V-lock, you will see immediately nice puckering occurs. But then you have to weigh the cost versus, your experience. And it is not that 100% of time I use barb sutures. But I'm very fond of barb sutures for myomectomy.
Also, another question is, kindly explain the tunneling procedure. What do you mean by tunneling?
Very good. Who is asking these questions? I must appreciate. Tunneling is you give one incision and in the vicinity there are 6-8 myomas lying. So outside give one incision, then push the fibroid towards the incision and make a tunnel. Give incision, remove. So that at the end, the exterior incision will be one and inside tunneling will remove multiple myomas. But I again we're making a very responsible statement. Anterior wall, posterior wall, I don't believe in a non-pregnant patient going through cavity because Asherman is a real risk. So we remove anterior wall by one and tunneling multiple. We remove patients where there are 30, 40, 50 myomas. So these are our principles that tunneling should not be transcavity because nowadays, if tubes are blocked, you can go for IVF. If you distort somebody's cavity, the Asherman will really, she will have to get surrogate. This doesn't stand true for cesarean myomectomy because this decidua is God's, this thing for preventing adhesions. And that is what, if you give very low scar where is no decidua at the cervix, you have higher incidence of cesarean scar ectopic. Because I get these patients disproportionately high referrals. Once in 1 week, I did 3 scar ectopics in Paras. So I have learned so much by my own, cases and mistakes and understanding. So if you give very low incision where there is hardly any decidua, next time there is placenta adherent to that point. So be careful about all these issues.
This last question, there's a doctor who has shared her experience that there was a broad-based subserosal fibroid during cesarean and it with calcification. So she did not remove the fibroid. She is asking whether she should have removed it, such broad-based fibroid.
One more secret I'll teach you. When there is subserosal fibroid, you don't give incision near to uterus. You be quite away. You will see at the end muscles retract. And that is your best covering for the myoma to prevent adhesion and to prevent bleeding. Don't touch the normal myometrium. Be inside the capsule. Give an incision quite away from the myometrium near the serosa and then dig out the myoma. Your patient will not bleed.
Thank you, ma'am.
Parul, I will like to ask one question to Dr. Alka.
Yes,
that have you done any antepartum first trimester or second trimester myomectomy?
Second trimester, I have done number because first trimester I haven't. But madam, I have done only couple of times when the patient was willing for, terminating that pregnancy because of very bad pain and I had a torsion in a myoma, subserous myoma. So it was getting gangrenous. So in those situations, when the fibroid is really leading to an emergency situation, only then. Otherwise, there is very high risk of, pregnancy getting terminated on its own.
Alka ji, in multiple fibroids, and if the patient has symptoms and she's had previous cesareans, that was the 4th time. So is there any role for cesarean hysterectomy?
Very good question. In good olden times, we used to do cesarean hysterectomy. I have realized with passage of time, with affluence, many patients want to conserve their uterus, especially when they are in mid-30s. Because nowadays, in India also situation is coming that there may be change in the partner. We have to see the societal conditions. So there are 2 classes of patients. Villagers who, they have finished their fertility very fast and they are more keen than me to get their uterus out that the periods will be a hassle. They insist that do cesarean hysterectomy. And there are patients, those who come from Dubai and that kind, ma'am, I want to save my uterus. And you have to see patient psyche, you have to see age of her children, you have to see so many things. And cesarean hysterectomy, after that, there is no recurrence of fibroid, no periods. I think they are better off if they are late age, you do that. But more and more patients of mine nowadays, they want to conserve uterus, especially highly educated ones.
Okay, but I performed a cesarean, I did a hysterectomy in one of my patients and she fared very well. And they were so happy that they've gotten rid of the fibroid, the uterus. She was approaching 40. And that was her fourth
because
child.
after some time she will come for cesarean hysterectomy. Is a safer bet than myomectomy.
Exactly.
Cesarean hysterectomy is a safer bet than cesarean myomectomy.
Exactly. And there was somebody who's asking a question that in which are the type of fibroids you will not remove during cesarean?
When the patient is highly anemic, she's having high risk factors like heart disease and all, I won't fiddle with that patient who is high risk for surgery. And one more thing I would like to say, we give them iron. Our patients don't take, they lie. I don't know why, because of the side effects. So
Injection.
this injectable iron is such a good way. Take that hemoglobin as high as possible.
Yes.
Otherwise, in Indian ladies, I don't see. My daughter has come hemoglobin 14 in London. I don't know what is in our diet or whatever. Our hemoglobin, I hardly see anybody above 12. So take hemoglobin high. The patient's healing power after myomectomy of that vascularized uterus is very good.
Thank you so much, Alka ji. It was a treat, I tell you.
It was a treat watching you people.
Academic
We all
treat.
enjoyed.
And thank you so much, Anuradha ji, for coming with your expert
Thank you.
comments and opinions.
Very good talk, Dr. Alka. We really enjoyed.
Yeah,
Thank you, madam.
really.
It was fantastic, Dr. Alka.
Thank you, Murli.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we move on to our second session. I now hand over the session to Dr. Amrita Tripathi. She is founder secretary, ISOPAR Prayagraj.
Thank you, dear Parul, and thank you, Alka ma'am. It was indeed a great learning from your lecture. So good evening and warm welcome, everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome today's guest of honor, a very eminent speaker, Dr. Muralidhar B. Pai sir. He's professor.
Dr.
Really?
Muralidhar Pai in one of the conference, if he's remembering when he was a
Of course,
junior
ma'am. Yes.
faculty. And I think he has covered from A to Z.
Everything.
Every problem which you encounter during cesarean, which is one of the commonest obstetric surgery world over. And he has given such a practical points. I must say, the person who has done and who has faced these problems can give these types of practical tips. I myself have applied forceps, Wrigley's forceps during cesarean several times. And for the first time when I was a junior faculty and was not able to take out the head, then probably at that time I never read that you can apply forceps, but nothing came in my mind just to ask Wrigley's and take it out. And later on when I read, then gradually I saw that.
That's a real genius, ma'am.
Yeah, there's so many people applying forceps. There is another very important aspect, like which he was describing, a jammed up head. When you are junior faculty, you really do not remember at that time what is Patwardhan, what is modified. You just try to take out the baby, whatever comes in your
That's what I
hand,
said.
which he mentioned that you have to somehow by hook or by crook, you have to take out a live child without injuring the maternal tissues. That is, I think, very, very true. When you read Patwardhan technique and you remember that you have to take out first shoulder, then trunk and
Then you
leg.
can't remember
I
anything.
think when you
can't
in
remember the
school,
different modifications and all.
you
Remove
really
whatever
don't
is
remember
begging
anything.
to be removed.
Yeah, you just don't remember anything. You just try to take out baby, and that's so true. So these are the two very important. I must share one of my nightmare besides this placenta accreta. I was a very junior faculty, and on 1st January, I still remember 1990, that was the coldest time, and I've shifted my house. And in the middle of the night, there was a call, and when I reached at about 1 a.m. in the almost middle of the night and started doing cesarean. And then it was to my utter surprise, I was not able to reach to the amniotic membrane. I was just going on cutting and cutting and cutting. And I thought, what is this? It was an emergency cesarean, patient non-booked coming in emergency, which is a very common situation in a public hospital. And all the sweat was coming out and I didn't know what to do because I was not able to reach. And it never struck to my mind that it might be fibroid, which is so flattened that you really do not know that what is it. I called to my second on call, Dr. Shushma Pandey at that time. She's no more. My respects for her. And naturally from her home when she was coming, it took half an hour. And I was just, बिल्कुल मैं पसीने में भीगी हुई थी, and I was going to think कि मैं क्या करूं, कहाँ से कैसे निकालूं. And ultimately, by the time she entered in the OT, and I could reach the membrane, and then I took out the baby, and then when the baby was out, then I realized, oh my God, it was an anterior wall, huge fibroid. She was an unbooked patient, came in emergency. You didn't know anything at that time that what is it? So that was a real nightmare. Now the nightmare is placenta accreta, unbooked patient coming and you don't know, no MRI, nothing doing, just patient is bleeding and then you come to know that it is accreta going into the bladder and everything. So definitely it was an excellent talk and very practical tip. Congratulations to Dr. Pai.
Dr. Pai, I would like to, and Dr. Vinita Das, I would like to share just one experience. My regular experience when I was doing my house job from GSVM. So there was this senior resident, I remember in emergency, there was this obstructed head. So she told me one thing. She said, see, don't panic. Just put your head straight hand straight inside, catch hold of the breech and do a version and take out the baby. So she made me so confident. And from that day, I have never panicked with a free head or with a deeply engaged head. It's always going in, taking the breach.
That's why I always tell, easy to pull others' legs.
Yeah.
And it's when we were junior,
I find it easier to do that. Because
when we were junior faculty, at that time, there's a lot of pushing from below was
that was
in our
But the most important thing is to break the vacuum that has been created.
Yeah.
Even if you pull the legs, the head won't budge.
Yes.
So you have to break the vacuum that has been created.
Yes, yes.
So many times you have to do both the things. Somebody is pushing from below and you are trying to catch hold of the legs and try to take out the baby. So it is not that easy, very easy to say. But when I think everybody must have faced.
Everybody starts panicking. We all start panicking.
I would like to say, Dr. Anjana,
very difficult, very easy to say that be calm. But when you are at that situation, you really
I've never seen a calm obstetrician. Every obstetrician is worked up.
So thank you very much. An excellent talk. And he has not left even a single thing from incision up to the delivery and taking care of the PPS. Very nice.
Thank you very much, madam. It's really, I'm happy to get your blessings, even that time and even today.
My pleasure. And I really enjoyed the whole talk.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. And I'm very happy to announce that there are more than 1,000 delegates, 1012 delegates at present. And we'll take question and answer at the end of both of the talks. And another important announcement that we have got one ICOG points and the ISOPAP Prayagraj and Varanasi Obs and Gynae Society is giving certificates for that, and you can download the certificate and the link is given there in where you are registering as a delegate. So with this, thank you everyone, and we'll proceed for the next session. For that, I'd like to invite Vice President ISOPAP Prayagraj, Dr. Vandana Bansal, a very senior gynecologist from City of Allahabad, to conduct the session and introduce the chairperson for the session. Vandana ma'am, please.
Unmute yourself, Vandana.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Very good evening to all of you. And in the next session, which will be by none else, by our star president, ISOPAP, Dr. Anjana Khanna. We are so proud of her. And in her session, she'll be speaking on a very, very important topic today. That is the role of the COVID positive patients treatment management in labor. So we are all facing COVID, and this is such an important topic.
Chairpersons, please put the slides of the chairpersons first.
And it is my proud privilege today to introduce before you chairpersons of this very, very important topic. The first chairperson is none else but Dr. Kiran Pandey. She is the professor and head of the department of Kanpur Medical College, Kanpur. And she is ISOG Governing Council member 2021 to 2022. She is the president Kanpur Menopause Society, and she is the chairperson IMA WDB 2019 till date. She is the ex-principal GMC Kanpur, and she is the president of Kanpur Obs and Gynae Society 2016 to 2018. She is the president IMA 2014 to 2015. She is the vice president state chapter UPCG 2019, and she has delivered Usha Saraiya Oration 2021 Foxy. She has delivered oration in CG Suraiya, CMC, AICOG. She has delivered more than 35 years of teaching experience. She has received Best Teacher Award. She has contributed various chapters in different books. She has been invited as a speaker for AICOG for past many years in faculty for many national and international conferences. She has organized many workshops, training programs, conference and seminars, both national and international. She has a special interest in gynae-oncology, infertility, adolescent health, urogynecology, high-risk pregnancy. She has received so many awards. To name few, she has received Matarakshi Samman Award, Matakshi Samman Award. She has received Foxy Champion Award. She has been awarded at a certificate of appreciation for excellent contribution in family welfare. And she has been honored by Mr. Satyadev Pachuri, Minister of Khadi and Village Industries. She has received various facilitated with Women of the Substance Award on International Women's Day. She has research.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay, Dr. Vandana. It's okay.
Please.
We have to give more time to the speaker.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you very much for very kind words.
Can I now, the second, now the Dr. Divya Agarwal. She has a fellowship in reproductive medicine, Germany. She is an eminent IVF specialist from the Varanasi. She is the director of Ayushman Multi-Speciality Hospital and Morpheus Akriti International IVF Center, Varanasi. She is a specialist in gynae endoscopy and infertility. She is president of Varanasi Obs and Gynae Society. She is treasurer of Varanasi Menopause Society. She is executive member of UPIFS, and she is past secretary of treasurer of Varanasi. She has presented papers at various national and international conferences. Okay?
Yeah.
With both are the chairpersons. And Dr. Anya Khanna, I will invite Dr. Divya Agarwal to please introduce Dr. Anya Khanna, our eminent speaker.
Thank you, Dr. Vandana, for your kind words of introduction. It's an honor for me to introduce Dr. Ranjana Khanna. She is a beautiful, smiling personality. I love to see her and meet her always. She is a senior consultant and director in the hospital Prayagraj. She has been the National Vice President Foxy 2017 and the founder president of Prayagraj chapter of ISOPAP 2021-22. She had been the she is also the ICOG Governing Council member from 2021 to 23, president of Allahabad Obs and Gynae Society in 13 to 16, honorary secretary and treasurer of also Obs in the past. She had been the organizing chairperson of the conference, Foxy Conference, BOH, the trilogy conducted in Delhi in 2017, organizing secretary of the Savama 2016 conference organized at Allahabad, faculty at various national and international conferences and webinars, and she had been awarded various awards like Foxy Smriti Milan Award and Foxy Dr. T.K. Tank Reproductive Healthcare Promotion Trophy, and she has
I think that should do. Some network problem?
I think you should start because
I
some
think I'll
connection
start
problem.
the talk now.
Yes,
no?
that would be
Yeah,
good.
yeah. I'll just share screen and put my slides on. Am I visible and audible?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, friends. My topic is management of COVID patient in labor. COVID-19 is a global pandemic which is caused by a novel coronavirus called SARS coronavirus. Currently, more than 100 million women are pregnant worldwide, and virtually all of them are at a risk of contracting COVID. Because pregnant women have a suppressed immune system, they may be at an increased risk of developing pneumonia and respiratory failure. Early data from a meta-analysis of 41 pregnant women with COVID-19 showed that they could be at an increased risk of miscarriage, preterm birth, preeclampsia, and cesarean, particularly if they are hospitalized with pneumonia. Their babies could be at a higher risk of stillbirth, neonatal death, and admission to NICU. So as a precautionary measure to limit the risk of exposure, pregnant women should be instructed to discontinue work or begin working from home a minimum of 2 weeks before the EDD and to practice strict social isolation during this time. For most women, this should be initiated at about 37 weeks of gestation. Transmission, vertical transmission, is it possible? Well, probably. No recorded cases of vaginal secretions being tested positive for COVID-19. There are no recorded cases of breast milk being tested positive for COVID-19. Effects on the fetus. Currently, no data suggests an increased risk of miscarriage or early pregnancy loss in relation to COVID-19. There is no evidence that the virus is teratogenic, and therefore, COVID-19 infection is not an indication for medical termination of pregnancy. Now we come to the ICMR guidelines regarding the care in labor. Aim is to keep the oxygen saturation more than 94%. If the woman has signs of sepsis, investigate and treat. There is currently no evidence to favor one mode of delivery over another. Mode of delivery should not be influenced by the presence of COVID-19 unless the woman's respiratory condition demands urgent delivery. There is no evidence that epidural or spinal analgesia or anesthesia is contraindicated in the presence of coronavirus. Epidural analgesia should therefore be recommended in labor to women with COVID to minimize the need for GA if urgent delivery is needed. In case of deterioration in the woman's symptoms, make an individual assessment regarding the risks and benefits of continuing labor versus emergency cesarean birth. When cesarean birth or other operative procedure is advised, remember it should be only done after wearing a PPE kit. Shorten the length of the second stage of labor with elective instrumental birth in a symptomatic woman who is becoming exhausted or hypoxic. Now, ICMR guidelines regarding management of patients admitted to critical care. Hourly observations, monitoring both the absolute values and the trends. Titrate oxygen to keep the saturations more than 94%. Hourly respiratory rate. Young, fit women can compensate for deterioration in the respiratory function. We must remember that, and are able to maintain normal oxygen saturations, and then they suddenly decompensate. So a rise in the respiratory rate more than 30 per minute, even if the saturations are normal, may indicate a deterioration in the respiratory function and should be managed by starting or increasing oxygen. Chest X-ray and CT should be performed whenever indicated and not delayed because of fetal concerns. Of course, abdominal shielding can be used to protect the fetus. Consider additional investigations to rule out differential diagnosis, example, ECG, CTPA as appropriate, echocardiography, and do not assume that all pyrexia is because of COVID, and you should perform full sepsis screening. Consider bacterial infection if the TLC is raised and commence antibiotics. Apply caution with IV fluid management to avoid fluid overload. Take into consideration the gestational age of the fetus and the maternal condition. If urgent delivery is needed for fetal reasons, birth should be expedited as normal as long as the maternal condition is stable. In the first stage of labor, upright position is recommended. Women with regional anesthesia in the first stage can take whatever position they find most comfortable. Walking is recommended in the first stage of labor in women without regional anesthesia, but in the delivery room. Oral administration of water and clear fluids can be encouraged. In case of oral restriction, intravenous fluid containing dextrose at the rate of 125 ml per hour. Intrapartum antibiotic prophylaxis is recommended for group B streptococcus positive patients. Oxytocin augmentation along with amniotomy may be recommended to expedite delivery, but this will depend on the patient's condition and an adequate Bishop scoring. Oxygen therapy, although nasal cannula is not considered an aerosol generating procedure, the fact that nasal cannula or face mask are in contact with the maternal respiratory tract and secretions makes handling of such equipment, taking on, taking off, or adjusting, can lead to greater possibility of contamination or exposure between the patient and the provider. A recent meta-analysis has demonstrated that intrapartum oxygen has no fetal benefit and may cause harm. Do not utilize oxygen therapy for fetal resuscitation. Nitrous oxide used during COVID-19 pandemic is not recommended. Second stage pushing should not be delayed because it prolongs the time to delivery and increases the risk of chorioamnionitis and PPH. In some units where they are using perineal massage and warm packs to prevent tears, they can continue to do that. Third stage, there are concerns regarding limited resources for blood transfusion because of inability to run the blood drives. All care should be taken to reduce the need for blood transfusion. In addition to standard oxytocin, please consider the usage of tranexamic acid and misoprostol, 400 micrograms buccally. The use of cell salvage during cesarean should be considered after stratification of risk of PPH and the capabilities of the institution. If blood transfusion is indicated and hemorrhage is not ongoing, then we should start with 1 unit of PRBC and not the traditional 2 PRBC. So 1 unit, and then if you need, then the second unit. Some have advocated for avoiding delayed cord clamping, even if vertical transmission has not been confirmed. Now, what are the drugs that can be used in COVID-19 pregnant patient in labor and delivery? Indomethacin. There were earlier reports postulating that NSAIDs may worsen the cause of COVID, but this has not been substantiated by WHO and FDA. For tocolysis, nifedipine may be considered as an alternative. Steroids, to give or not to give? See, in the very mild cases of COVID, and you need, patient comes in premature labor pains, then we can give dexamethasone with caution. And because COVID-19 in pregnancy increases the risk of preterm delivery by 3-fold. Now, there was a trial which was done, the recovery trial, that demonstrates that low-dose dexamethasone is beneficial among patients with moderate to severe COVID-19. The above trial favors the use of methylprednisolone rather than prednisolone among pregnant women with severe COVID-19. When preterm labor is imminent, such a patient can receive a short course of dexamethasone to accelerate the fetal lung maturation. She then continues getting methylprednisolone for the duration as stipulated by the country-specific COVID-19 guidelines. RCOG recommends prednisolone or hydrocortisone rather than methylprednisolone. Why? Because these two drugs are cheaper and readily available. Magnesium sulfate is indicated for neuroprotection when delivery is anticipated before 32 weeks or for eclampsia prophylaxis. There are no reported data regarding the impact of magnesium sulfate on COVID. However, given the potential respiratory complications with the use of magnesium sulfate, it should be used judiciously in cases of severe respiratory symptoms. Anticoagulants. Pregnancy, we know, is widely recognized as a hypercoagulable state. There is emerging evidence suggesting that individuals admitted to hospital with COVID-19 are also hypercoagulable. Infection with SARS-CoV-2 is likely to be associated with an increased risk of maternal venous thromboembolism. All pregnant women should have a VTE assessment and be prescribed a prophylactic dose of thromboprophylaxis unless there is a suspicion of VTE. When therapeutic dose thromboprophylaxis should be administered. Both LMWH and unfractionated heparin can be used. LMWH must be withdrawn, we all know, 12 hours before delivery. Unfractionated is shorter acting. So in labor, we prefer unfractionated heparin. Number one, because it is shorter acting, and number two, because the action is totally reversed with protamine sulfate. Thrombocytopenia is also associated with severe COVID. So if the platelets go below 50,000, then stop aspirin prophylaxis and thromboprophylaxis and seek the advice of a hematologist. Remdesivir. Consider the use of antiviral medications such as remdesivir that have been shown to be potentially beneficial by reducing the time of clinical improvement in COVID-19. Remdesivir was well tolerated in pregnant women. Other than transaminitis, adverse effects are not seen. Now we'll come to some excerpts from the FOXI GCPR. Labor triage for women with COVID-19 infection. The woman should call in advance to alert the maternity unit about her arrival. This will give time to the healthcare workers to prepare in triage. She should be met with PPE donned personnel at the reception itself. Reception and triage should be a room with negative pressure, but this is not available everywhere. Keep the room free from unnecessary clutter, which should act as infected fomites later. There should be a restriction on the number of attendants and entry and exit of non-essential staff into the room. Now, when we manage a patient of labor and delivery with COVID-19, then we must remember in all circumstances, maternity care providers should continue to provide client-centered, respectful, skilled care and support. There should be adequate counseling of the mother about the infection. Separate delivery room and operation theaters are required for management of COVID-19 mothers. Both should have neonatal resuscitation corners located at least 2 meters from the delivery table. So the resources required include space, equipment, supplies, trained healthcare providers for delivery, cesarean, neonatal resuscitation. The standards and facilities required for infection control in these areas should be the same as that for other adults with COVID-19 infection. Now, if a woman presents in preterm labor, tocolysis is actually contraindicated in following the general principles of avoiding such an intervention with systemic disease. This decision should be individualized depending on the degree of clinical severity of the infection. If there is pulmonary involvement, beta-mimetic agents should be avoided. For a woman in preterm labor, we can give antenatal steroids routinely because this is safe. Timing of delivery should not be altered on the basis of COVID-19 infection. The presence of infection is not an indication to induce labor or deliver the woman. The exception to this would be the critically ill pregnant woman where delivery may be indicated to relieve the extra metabolic and pulmonary load. However, the possible benefits of this needs to be weighed against the possible risks of worsening the systemic status with a surgical intervention. Such a decision has to be guided by individual circumstances, including the degree of clinical stability, the gestational age, available infrastructure, and above all, the couple's wishes. In labor, monitoring should include periodic evaluation of the respiratory status with a watch for symptoms of difficulty or shortness of breath, respiratory rate, pulse rate, oxygen saturation on pulse oximetry. If there is a deterioration of these features, intensive care measures would be required, including ventilatory support. As such, the pregnant woman with COVID-19 infection can be allowed to labor, and indications for interventions would follow the standard obstetrical practice. But we must remember that a prolonged labor may be detrimental to the general condition of a woman who has a systemic illness. Prolonged oxytocin infusion and volume overload should be avoided. With every examination and contact, the healthcare workers should be very mindful of adequate protective gear. Continuous electronic fetal monitoring in labor wherever such facilities are available. Now, at present, pregnant women have almost universally been delivered by cesarean section when they present in labor with COVID-19 infection. Though there is no proven scientific rationale for this, it could reflect the local preference and practices. Operating with PPE gear can be a formidable task. There can be difficulty with communication. Tactile sensation is diminished, increase in operating time. Air conditioner has to be switched off to prevent the spread of virus into the atmosphere. If a woman with COVID-19 has respiratory features and PPH, carboprost should be avoided. Methyl ergometrin used with caution. Oxytocin, misoprostol, and tranexamic acid can be easily used as usual. Now, we have talked about epidural and spinal being safe. Now, if a woman who has had an epidural anesthesia, who has not had an epidural anesthesia requires a cesarean, then the choice of anesthesia is governed by the general health status of the woman. For most women, spinal anesthesia is suitable. However, in the situation where there is respiratory compromise, GA and subsequent ventilation will be needed. If general anesthesia is administered, pre-oxygenate the patient for 5 minutes with 100% oxygen and perform rapid sequence induction to avoid manual ventilation of the patient's lungs. This is for the anesthetist, of course. For the anesthetist, we must say that use a wide video laryngoscope to improve intubation success and avoid awake fiber optic intubations when possible. This is a procedure that induces aerosolization. The need for using full PPE kit is reiterated. Place a high efficiency hydrophobic filter between the face masks and the breathing circuit, or between the face mask and the reservoir bag to avoid contaminating the atmosphere. To conclude, coronavirus is a deadly virus which is mutating rapidly. We are gaining more knowledge regarding the cause of the disease and the management. At present, this virus does not seem to destroy the fetus, but we may get to know more things about the ill effects of the virus as these mutations continue. The scenario of the disease is changing, and so will our concepts regarding management of a COVID-positive laboring patient. WHO says, be safe from coronavirus infection, be smart and inform yourself about it, be kind and support one another. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anjana. Wonderful coverage of the whole topic from A, B, C, D up to the Z. You have given total ICMR guidelines with each and every small detail. You have dealt with the labor protocols. What I would like to, I mean, everything you have covered, I think nothing is left. I just can share my experience a little bit, because we do have that practical, we are dealing with this COVID. So I can share with you. Like initially, in short, when we last year, we started with the first wave of COVID-19. Honestly speaking, all those things like the independent labor room, the independent space, that much nothing was there. We were forced by to do it, act immediately. So we almost half of our hospital, one half of our hospital, we converted into the COVID wing, because we were told that the main COVID isolation ward, and they were different, and you have to do it in your hospital. So we, within a week, we tried and that did everything with the help of our administration, of course. And the 2 labor rooms, one for suspect, one for positive, 2 OTs, one for suspect, and that we created, and the ward and the isolation, everything. I would say not exactly up to the 100% perfect, but almost we can say 80-90% we tried to accommodate. So that is one thing. We have dealt with around the first wave, almost 500 patients. And the second wave, which I will take it as a from 1st of the April, till date, almost 150 patients. I mean, this time, बहुत जल्दी patients का number was very much. Last time, it was a very, that way, we were very happy that we have been able to save almost all patients. I think there was 1 or 2 mortality only. And that was with the case in one, she was suffering with, along with the pregnancy, history of ovarian cancer was there. So that was a little advanced. Second was with a severe PET, eclampsia actually. So besides that, we had a very good time, like no complications in pregnant ladies. Our doctors on duty almost safe. 1 or 2 became positive. They were because of the family issues. मतलब like उनके किसी के husband positive होके आ गए तो they convert. हमारे hospital में everything was safe. But on contrast, this time I would say, just want to let you know what is actually happening in this second wave. We had a very, I would say quite bad time, in the sense that many patients are coming with a low oxygen saturation and respiratory discomfort and illness. And even many a times, as you all must be seeing these reports and everything, that many of them do not even show the RT-PCR positive.
Very unstable.
So that the corona presumptive. And now we do face problem, corona presumptive to ho gaya, ek term to de diya government ne. But what has happened, they are not given entry into the, when they need ICU, तो उनके लिए कोई अलग से ICU नहीं है.
Okay.
आपका जो हमारा जो main ICU है, that is for positive patients. है ना, वहाँ वो positive की report के without they will not take. And the other one is for a non-COVID patients, जिनकी negative है. Now we know the patient is showing all the signs and symptoms of corona. Oxygen saturation without help is going to 60. Lesser than that, even CT report is showing the score of 12 or 16 or 18. And I mean, this is the practical problem I'm telling you, which our in department we are facing even today. That उस patient को ICU shift करने के लिए, because हमारे hospital में we are NRBM तक हम लोग कर लेते हैं, oxygen maintain कर लेते हैं, but we don't have a BiPAP or a ICU in department, है ना? Because for that, the anesthetists are required, intensivists are required.
A presumptive positive report TrueNat is giving. RT-PCR will give for the same patient a negative report.
No, but sometimes I'm telling you, Dr. Anjana, even the TrueNat is not giving the report, only the symptoms are there. Symptoms are true picture.
Yes.
And now the problem is कि वो किस ICU में patient shift हो. We are fighting with that. That's what are the practical problem I'm telling you. And practically कौन से labor room में deliver कराएं, कौन से OT में operate हो. Every small problem we are facing कि हम उसको कहाँ कराएं. हम presumptive, हम non-COVID में कराएं तो हमारे doctors exposure में and everything is becoming problem. हम positive में कराएं और अगर ये नहीं है तो हम उसे expose कर दें. So we are having a real tough time in managing.
But I think you know that for the postgraduates and the junior doctors who are conducting all this, they should consider all patients, COVID and non-COVID, as COVID positive.
Ranjana ji, I'm coming to that. That's what we are teaching them. We are telling them, we are dealing with that. But still what happens practically, what I have noticed during this duration of 1.5 months, those who are working on the non-COVID side, they are becoming positive. Why? Because आप कितना भी बताओगे, कुछ न कुछ वहाँ पे lacks हो जाता है. Those who are entering into the COVID, they are तो very much, मतलब आपका double protective, triple protective लेते हैं labor room में. But जब आप इसमें non-COVID में रहते हो, how much you still कि तुम्हें बिल्कुल सबको कोविड पॉजिटिव मान के चलना है, still some laxity happens, gaps happen, and they, I mean, this time we suffered. Hamara 40% faculty and residents became positive. So it was a real, although thanks to God and I am grateful that everyone recovered nicely. This is what is the scenario. This is practical scenario. Another thing I want to just keep highlighting few points of the COVID labor room management, which Dr. Ranjana has very nicely discussed, or everything in great detail. I again will say from A to Z. Like small points to be measured कि corona में cesarean जो एक बात आई कि all have been done. I mean, this has to be emphasized. No, corona is not an indication for cesarean section. That decision has to be on the obstetric indications. हाँ, minor difference आपको रखना है कि यहाँ unnecessary delay नहीं करना है. You don't have to delay. You don't have to prolong things. You have to know where to stop. But otherwise, that's not the corona infection. And we have had almost 50-50. 50% cesarean, 50% normal delivery. Because एक बात तो है, normal, Ranjana आप mute में हो गए हो.
नहीं, मैं कह रही हूँ that the Foxy GCPR is saying that it has been seen that mostly all over the world people are delivering these patients by LSCS.
That's, in fact, actually I tell you, normal delivery is better because आप cesarean में at least minimum कितना भी करे 3 people will be there. And honestly speaking, अभी तक हमारा एंटी फॉग आई प्रोटेक्शन जो है वो बहुत अच्छा नहीं है. फॉगिंग आ जाती है. Many a times my faculty is telling कि मैडम हम अंदाज, लगता है ऐसा है कि अंदाज से कर रहे हैं. We don't understand कि हम क्या करें. फील और इतने साल का एक्सपीरियंस है. So you feel something very difficult. Then you are sweating and doing everything. It becomes really difficult. So that's one thing which, अगर normal delivery हो सकती है, definitely go for it. Of course, you have to customize. You have to see कि which patient requires what. Then negative pressure की जो आपने बात की, ideally correct. Negative pressure होना चाहिए OT and labor room में. But we don't have those facilities, to be honest. So what you
That's
can
what
do,
I said, that it's mostly not there.
Yeah, so what we can do, what we have done, हम क्या करते हैं, frequent air exchange करते हैं. What we have done is कि हमने AC भी लगा है लेकिन exhaust भी लगाया हुआ है. So अगर हम पूरे time exhaust चलने देते हैं, so that the air is going outside, किधर जा रही है, that also we have decided कि this side the air has to go. So initially when we were constructing it, हमारे engineer ने हमको कहा ऐसा मैडम AC के साथ कहाँ लगता है. मैंने कहा नहीं तुम लगाओ. We put that exhaust also along with the AC. So the exhaust is running all the time, the air is going out. At least some protection, whatever we can do.
Yeah.
So these small things, then we are definitely protecting. And another very important thing I've noticed, donning say more important is doffing.
Doffing.
These residents and junior doctors and FISMA faculty, what happens when you get exhausted after when you are operating or doing something, that time you become little relaxed. आप exhaust मतलब हो जाते हैं और doffing के समय थोड़ा careless होते हैं. और actually at the time of after the operation, the virus is on your protective gear. Donning के समय तो आपने fresh पहना है, so it's not there. But the virus is on your protective gear when after the operation. So that has to be removed very, very carefully. So what I have been doing, every time हम लोग training, continuous teaching चलता रहता, revision. मतलब एक हमने पूरा बना ही दिया है कि हर समय तुम पढ़ाते ही रहो something or other. So these are the I have many things too, small tips, but time का I don't know, constraint must be there. 7:10 हो गया है. I don't know how much time you have.
Question answers will be taken up.
हाँ, so but I just wanted to share these small things which we felt.
Very good, very good. Yeah.
Baby का भी I have seen this time. I would again say last wave में हमारे केवल 2 babies positive आए थे. Although अभी proved नहीं है, but this time we have already in 1.5 months we had 6 babies who have shown corona positive. Although none has succumbed, everyone has gone home. But these are the data which is actually coming up. So we have to see what is happening.
Vertical transmission is, with this 1.617 virus mutation.
जो अब हो रहा है, that's what I wanted to say.
Maybe
The only hope in the last, I would just say कि अभी हमारे गवर्नमेंट ने उसे अप्रूव नहीं करा है, केवल लैक्टेटिंग वुमेन को अप्रूव करा है. But I think so, the Covaxin, which is comparatively safe, and that should be advised for a breastfeeding woman. We should all try that. Covaxin should be, I mean,
for pregnant ladies.
Foxy, yes, Foxy has already given it, although government has not accepted it. Again, that there was a move. Let's hope so. They even the advisory for the vaccination board, I think it is NTAG or something, which has also given this statement. So we should all hope that this vaccine is allowed for pregnant ladies and our pregnant ladies become safe. Unfortunately, they were not included into the trial, initial trials. So we don't know. But some जैसे emergency allow करा गया है deliver करने के लिए vaccines को, maybe some emergency trial government can allow, and then we can do something, because a big chunk, big population is being which is not getting vaccinated, and this time it's serious. It's causing effect, succumbing. Mortality,
and it's affecting the neonates also, na?
Yeah.
So maybe vertical transmission is actually taking place. We never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, so I think so. This aspect should be given proper, I mean, research and proper idea should be floated, and something should be done for it. That's what the few things I just wanted to share with you.
That was very nice.
Thank you,
Dr. Kiran.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, an excellent observation.
Dr.
And
Divya, you want to say?
for the question answers just now.
Yeah.
Dr. Divya want to say a few?
No, Dr. Kiran has already given her overview, and she has shared her experience. It's already very nice, and she has been dealing all these cases on day-to-day basis.
Exactly.
That's why we have
being as a private practitioner, so we are not doing it. So she is the best person to give her opinion.
Exactly.
But I would like to congratulate Dr. Ranjana for such an excellent press talk. You have almost covered all the aspects of the topic. Again, congratulations to Dr. Ranjana and Dr. Kiran. You too.
Thank you.
Yes, madam, both of you actually gave a total comprehensive view about it. Dr. Kiran Pandey gave practical tips also.
Practical, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Dr. Murali, आपका तो excellent होता है. I think this time also you will share your slides. You always keep it. So nice, very nice. Every time I hear it gives a perfect.
Thank you, everyone. So we'll proceed for the question and answer for the second and the third session. First question is for Dr. Murali. Someone is saying, sir, during my 14-year experience, I haven't used low vertical incision. What are the chances of extension downward? And if it extends down into the vagina, how to manage?
Yeah, so this is a usual problem when you want to give low vertical. I have also not given many. Very few, just because I read it. Those days I wanted to experiment, I did it. But as I immediately told during my talk, it is not mandatory to give low vertical just because it is a preterm baby. You can manage the preterm baby also with the low transverse also. Yes, there is a fear of extension if you are not careful while delivering the baby, especially if you don't maintain the flexion of the baby. And not only extension down to the cervix, also people have experienced tears in the bladder if you are not careful. So you can err on the side of going little higher because the lower segment is not well formed. That is one of the reasons why low vertical is advised. See, in the preterm situation, lower segment is not at all formed. You see, and if you give a transverse incision, you can't extend it further unless you go for curvilinear and J-shaped or all those. That is why low vertical was suggested, and it is better to err on the side of slightly higher rather than lower. And extension always should be towards the upper segment rather than
upper side.
Another question is difference between reverse breech and interpodalic version.
Yeah. Okay. Reverse breech is here. The baby is already, head is down. Okay. So then you are not going for the head delivery. You are trying to deliver the breech first. Whereas internal podalic version, what happens is the baby's head is not down. It is either in the flanks or in the transverse lie. It will be quite higher up, wherein you catch hold of the legs convert it into breech, and deliver. So that's the difference.
And another, someone has a case of previous 2 cesarean with dilated tortuous blood vessels at the angles. She inadvertently pricked the uterine artery and led to a big hematoma that is of 8 into 6 centimeter. What could be done to prevent such big hematoma formation, and what type?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to tell. Some people believe in, because these spiral arteries come from the sides, they try to put an stitch like that onto the sides, and they work within the stitch. But then it is easier said than to follow that. You know, at the time of delivery, you are so desperate, you cannot see where I have put the stitch and all those things you somehow want to deliver. So in those situations, probably if you feel that, you know, I am going to extend, or it's a previous section, it's going to be brittle. And since it's probably 2 sections, now it's a 3rd section, you are definitely going to follow it up with the sterilization. Better to go for upper segment. There's nothing wrong. Though the present day obstetricians are not well versed with the upper segment. Earlier, we used to say upper segment is easy, but for all of us now, lower segment is easier than the upper segment.
Definitely.
Upper segment, we have to learn now specifically.
It's something like hysterectomy when we used to do, correct, where we used to make the midline incision in the upper segment, correct, and then, you know, have a tough time trying to control the.
So what is your opinion in this case, slightly going higher and giving transfers and avoiding those tortuous vessels?
Yeah, that also can be done. But, you know, higher transfers is again difficult to extend. Whereas higher vertical is easy. See, always vertical is easy to extend. Whether it is abdominal incision, uterine incision, everywhere we say vertical is easier to extend. And because it is in the center, there are hardly any vessels, whether it's abdominal wall or the uterine wall. And the midline, there are hardly any vessels. So when you extend, the bleeding will be lesser. And it's always easier to extend. That's why I always tell even the sterilization, the interval sterilization, when our PGs do, they put a, not the interval, the postpartum sterilization, the 2 fingers below the fundus, they put a transverse incision. It looks ugly, just below the umbilicus. You should always put a vertical incision. It will be in line with the central. Though, of course, it has got the disadvantage of the hernia and other things because of avascularity, but easier to extend should you not get the tubes. So vertical is always better for easy extension.
Next question
See, if you put a high transverse and then if you cannot extend and deliver, then you'll go for inverted T, which is worse.
Basically, the curvilinear high transfers with the extension on the sides, the curvilinear, that will be the
best option.
Next question is, what type of suturing advice, whether locking or non-locking?
Yeah, this is a very controversial area. I mean, I have another cesarean talk where I go step by step, critically analyzing every step. That is 1 hour talk, using all Cochrane review and all that. But what I will tell you in one sentence, none of these studies and none of the Cochrane reviews have given clear-cut answer. They have always given something like, on the fence only. They said you can do this, you can do that, you can do this also, you can do that also. So, but the recent thinking is, if you do continuous locking, there can be ischemia, and there can be some sort of breaking of the the wound. So people now believe maybe if there is a bleeder, that particular bite you can take a locking. Okay. Rest of the thing can be continuous.
Yeah.
Another of repeated question, 1 layer or 2 layer?
Yeah. So actually, we have gone through a full circle. Earlier, we used to religiously put 2 layers. Then we went for 1 layer to be very quick. And now we are back to 2 layers. Because
2 layers.
Yeah.
And
full circle.
medico-legal sterilization operation should be done with cesarean.
What is that medical legal? Anyway, sterilization, you have to take consent before doing sterilization.
Okay. And I think this completes the question answers for the cesarean section part. And then we proceed with Dr. Ranjana and Kiran ma'am. I think this Dr. Ranjana has covered. Should tranexamic acid used routinely to be done because COVID pregnancies and anti-athrombogenic state?
Yeah, we are using. Tranexamic acid should be used because it decreases the blood loss. Na? Why should we want that more and more blood loss should be there?
And if the patient is primary gravida, 35 weeks of pregnancy, COVID positive, CBC and CRP and LDH are normal, D-dimer is around 840. Role of LMWH in this patient and how long we can continue and when to repeat D-dimer.
LMWH, yes, it can be safely given and it should be given. And as I said before, that stop it just 12 hours before delivery.
Anyway, we have obstetricians have the advantage of experience with LMW. We give it all the time for APLA and all that.
All
so we
the
are not
time.
worried about it.
RPL, we are routinely using it. So we are so confident.
Correct. So as madam said, if you are doing LMW, you can at least stop it 12 to 24
12 hours before. Yeah.
But if it is high molecular weight, at least 6 to 8 hours.
But with the unfractionated, then you have to keep on monitoring the blood
No,
profile.
most of us are giving LMW only, but if the
Yeah,
patient is very
LMWH
poor and all that, we are giving.
Yeah.
Next question
and
is.
I think D-dimers have to be repeated. The second part of the question is,
yes,
like these basically LMW we can give for 5 days and then we can repeat the D-dimers. And if they are coming within the normal limits, then we can think of it ki we have to stop or we have to do what accordingly. And of course,
we need not also with LMWH, so we don't have to actually.
But they have done. They have not done
they
for.
Want to stop it if they want to stop it.
They have not done D-dimer for this. They have done the D-dimer for a corona.
Corona,
it is one of the two important events which the corona causes. One is a respiratory, mainly mouth or heart has also come. The another is thrombotic event. So there they are doing this D-dimer for that. Although some studies are saying this also, कि that's also not the कि उस पे monitor नहीं करना है exactly. लेकिन ये कि yes, if it is high.
But Dr. Kiran, 5 दिन में नहीं normalize होता D-dimer.
नहीं normalize नहीं होगा, trend आएगा. If it is that's coming down,
it can have a downward trend, but
and then you plan it accordingly.
In 5 days, no.
It will not come down to the normal, but it will. The trend will start. You can see it, and then you can plan accordingly.
Vinita ji, what would you say?
Madam, I want to ask you, is there any...
You're muted, Vinita ji, you're muted.
So what is your opinion about postpartum, this low molecular weight heparin? Because with COVID, more chances of thrombotic, so it's only depends on the D-dimer or routinely you are propagating?
Madam, in these cases, what these it should be given routinely for some time.
We are giving in RPL also when the patient is already on an
post thrombotic events.
We continue to give it.
We are, Dr. Vinita madam, COVID or no COVID, we are routinely giving thromboprophylaxis for all cesarean sections.
All cesarean?
All cesarean sections. Routinely, COVID or no COVID. We have been doing this for a long time now.
Okay, we were not giving for all.
I know we were not giving earlier, but recently, there was a death in one of the local hospitals.
Obese patients,
and this became a very big issue that they had not started it. So, in spite of starting, there can be death. That's different. But if you are starting, you are safe. You can,
Vinita ji, we are also not giving routinely. You are right. Abhi tak hum log, lekin in COVID patients, it should be.
It should be.
It should be.
So, Kiran, you are giving in COVID patient routinely in postpartum?
No, what we are doing is blood thinner we are giving. Not exactly the enoxaparin into everything or the LMWH. We are giving this, I'm forgetting, Eliquis. Eliquis.
Dr. Ranjana, I have a question. Is the D-dimer levels are higher for COVID patients or because in pregnancy, as it is, D-dimers are slightly higher. How do you, which is the cutoff for pregnancy?
I don't know the cutoff, but they are very high in COVID.
Normal cutoff at the moment, so we do have only the reference value 500 ka do upper limit hai. Beyond that, if it is going, if the other symptoms are there.
In COVID patients, I'm seeing around 3,000 and all, not less than that. And
so we can use the same cutoff as the non-COVID patients.
Yes, and at the moment, so the dictum is that, I mean, you have to think everything regarding the corona and the rest of the other things to be ruled out later.
No doubt.
Another patient is 28 weeks, Gravida 3, Para 2, 2 live issues with severe COVID, saturation 55% on room air. Patient develops IUD, baby weight is 850. How to deliver this patient vaginally or by cesarean? If vaginally, how to do the induction, whether with Cerviprim gel or any other method.
What is the condition? The condition is very bad.
Very bad, 55% on room air.
So now you have to weigh the risk now of surgery versus keeping the baby inside, because surgery is also going to be traumatic experience for her, and induction is also going to cause fluid overload and problem. So it's a bad situation both ways. Take the consent and try to remove one such patient. Parul, you had in your this thing.
This is Parul's questions. Parul's questions.
They had the same patient. So because I don't think such a small baby would cause so much distress. So I said, see, now talk to the attendants, and if they are agreeable that, okay, we can try taking out the baby and saving her life, but we can't be sure of the stress that the cesarean would cause on the patient's condition and well-being. So
may I just try to give my opinion?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It's a tricky situation. See, usually we go for section basically to save the baby. I mean, that is the thing.
But so this time the baby is IUD.
Then it is an urgency, and we are in a dilemma whether to go harder. Now, what is advised or what is recommended, if it is a severe COVID and patient is in ICU, now the principle of that, what we take in road traffic accidents, there is a chance of complication on the table. If you don't do also, there is a chance of complication. In that time, we are on the side of taking the decision based on the patient's choice. Now, if there is a IUD, now there is no urgency to deliver as such, unless she has already gone into coagulation problems and other things, which also is managed, by anticoagulants only, not by delivery. Delivery is not going to solve the problem. So since there is an IUD, there is no urgency to go ahead and deliver her. We can first stabilize her COVID-wise, and then of course you can go for induction misoprostol and go hope for a vaginal delivery. Eventually, after 1 week, she may herself get into sort of labor, and if you push it with.
If she doesn't get stabilized, then the attendants may pressurize you that remove the baby.
It is always there, even without COVID. Once
COVID or no COVID, attendants always get hysterical once there's an IUD. Ki zahar phail jayega, please remove, please remove, please remove. So
even in a non-COVID situation, they are like that.
That's a very dilemmatic stage. Many a times, जब आप उनसे consent मांगिए कि करना है distance, then they will not give the consent. But as soon as the baby dies, they will be after you to do it.
निकाल दो.
It's a real tricky situation.
Non-COVID, we'll say कि नहीं, हम उसको induce करके निकाल देंगे. नहीं, मैडम, जहर फैल जाएगा, हमारा मरीज मर जाएगा, बच्चा निकालिए पहले.
I understand what you say.
You have to go, as Dr. Murli said very correctly, that you have to go by the patient's mentality. I mean, usko bhi leke chalna padega.
Yeah.
And of course, ICU facility and that maintenance and everything, stabilizing facility should be there. Aapka intensivist should be ready to take her and do all the.
Very good. Correct.
Now 3 questions left, but I'm combining all 3. Should we give COVID vaccine after in postpartum period after 6 weeks? Why दूसरा भी यही है कि after how many days we should give COVID vaccine, and after giving vaccine, pregnancy should be avoided. If avoided, for how many months?
No, pregnancy need not be avoided, and immediately after delivery, the patient can be given the vaccine. अब तो GOI भी आ गया है.
That is what I said it na. अब तो
the GOI has already come for lactating women. So what's the problem now? We are absolutely safe.
And even यहाँ का तो नहीं, but otherwise Western countries में जो mRNA vaccines हैं, they are saying, they are claiming कि some antibodies are going through the breastfeeding to the babies, and because the young, very small babies don't have chance of vaccination, so this may be the only hope for them to get some immunity.
Correct. So Pfizer and Moderna, they are recommending.
So with this, we come to end of the question and answer session. अभी कुछ और भी आ गया.
हाँ, एक आया है RT-PCR and one lab is positive.
Blood. Next day, the other lab is negative. Blood parameters D-dimer 1200, CRP 1.6.
Once a positive, always positive.
How should we consider?
That is the dictum.
Yeah.
Once a positive, you have to treat her like a positive. That's all. Nothing.
So, with this
Dr. Pai, my initial request. Are you too tired, or can we just?
What I would do is, instead of singing live, shall I just share my recorded one?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, I'll do
Please
that.
do. Before we conclude.
Dr. Ranjana, I missed that request because I was in another webinar.
I requested him in the beginning only that I won't leave you before you sing.
Yeah. So here it is. I hope you enjoy this.
Yeah.
पुकारता चला हूँ मैं गली गली बाहर की, बस एक छाँव जुल्फ की, बस एक निगाह प्यार की। पुकारता चला हूँ मैं गली गली बाहर की, बस एक छाँव जुल्फ की, बस एक निगाह प्यार की। पुकारता चला हूँ मैं। ये दिल लगी ये शौकिया सलाम की, यही तो बात हो रही है काम की। कोई तो मुड़ के देख लेगा इस तरह, कोई नजर तो होगी मेरे नाम की। पुकारता चला हूँ मैं गली गली बाहर की, बस एक छाँव जुल्फ की, बस एक निगाह प्यार की। पुकारता चला हूँ मैं। सुनी मेरी सदा तो किस यकीन से, घटा उतर के आ गई जमीन पे। रही यही लगन तो ऐ दिले जवां, असर भी हो रहेगा एक हसीन पे। पुकारता चला हूँ मैं गली गली बाहर की, बस एक छाँव जुल्फ की, बस एक निगाह प्यार की। पुकारता चला हूँ मैं।
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you, ma'am.
That was really lovely, Dr. Pai. I think that was the befitting end to this academic session. Absolutely lovely.
Once again, I thank you for inviting me, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Nice.
You're welcome.
It was really, I mean, the most beautiful end.
Chitra, now please give the vote of thanks.
I had to say this, sing this song, looking at all beautiful women there.
We are flattered.
Yeah, really. But it was really soothing for the nerves. And well, Dr. Pai, you have stimulated me to call you more often now.
Thank you, ma'am. It's my
Ranjana,
pleasure always.
Anji.
Dr. Ranjana, you
Anji.
have made this sort of friend that really I loved it. Such a good end of the webinar. I never thought of it. No, I will make it in every webinar after that, that someone will sing something. Like Dr. Pai.
My idea is being copied.
Yes, Divya is there from
Yeah.
World Society as a president. Divya
Yeah, it's a
just
beautiful
note this
end.
point.
Yeah,
Just
definitely,
note this
definitely,
point.
ma'am. Yes.
I'm a fan of Dr. Pai singing, you know. I've heard him often.
Many times also I heard in dais singing.
Sings also, and the selection of song was also very beautiful.
Very nice.
Yeah,
That was a
very soothing.
That's a very, I mean, song, retro song, but still into our hearts always.
And
I
sang
love
very
all old
beautifully.
songs.
Thank you.
Chitra, please conclude.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am.
I'm pleased to be entrusted and given the opportunity to propose vote of thanks. My first and foremost thanks goes to our distinguished chief guest, Padam Shri Professor Alka Kriplani, teacher of the teachers and an excellent orator, for her gracious presence. My heartfelt thanks to our guest of honor, Professor Muralidhar Pai, a great academician. Thank you, sir, for sparing your time. Another special thanks for your melodious song in such a soulful voice. I extend my sincere gratitude to all the chairpersons, Professor Anuradha Khanna ma'am, Professor Vinita Das ma'am, Professor Kiran Pandey ma'am, and Dr. Divya Agarwal for their precious time and valuable inputs. My special thanks to all the learned speakers, Professor Alka Kriplani, Professor Muralidhar Pai, and our very own Dr. Ranjana Khanna ma'am for their insightful and thought-provoking deliberations with amazing videos and practical tips and tricks. And I'm very sure that our audience must have been enriched today. I would also like to thank our conveners, Dr. Vandana Bansal and Dr. Parul Khanna, for conducting all the sessions seamlessly and effortlessly. A big thank you to our organizing chairperson, Dr. Ranjana Khanna ma'am, a great visionary and guiding force behind this webinar, and dynamic organizing secretary, Dr. Amita Tripathi, for all her efforts in keeping us well connected and well informed in last few days. I convey my hearty thanks to Dr. Divya Agarwal, President of Varanasi Obs and Gynae Society, and all the members of VOX who joined today for their cooperation and active participation. As no event can be successful without its participants, my special thanks to our absolutely enthusiastic and engaged delegates on board today. There were more than 1,000 delegates and they were very interactive. We had very good question answer session because of these delegates only. Last but not the least, I thank our academic partners, MCure Pharma, for providing us this platform. So at the end, before signing off, once again, I thank each and everyone who logged in today and made this webinar a great success. Thank you.
I would also actually like to extend my thanks to the MCure people, the Zenix division. Thank you all so much for your support and continuous, listening to all our whims and fancies. And thanks for the certifications also. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Good night.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pai. You were a delight to hear and to hear the song also. And everybody in the chat box is going on praising your singing.
Thank you, Dr. Ranjana. I was in time, I hope. I have been there.
Anji, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Anji
and Radha ji.
आपने बाद में चित्रा जी का चेहरा दिखा के और रौनक ला दी.
We keep the good things for the best things for the end. So Dr. Pai and Chitra were in the end.
So nice. और फिर आपका चेहरा तो लाजवाब है ही.
Oh God, thank you so much, Anuradha ji.
Okay, have a safe time, all of you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pai. It was a lovely session, lovely.